Okay.
This is the Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024 general meeting of SLUUG, the St. Louis Unix Users Group. Tonight, our first speaker is Lee Lammert of Omnitech Corporation, and he's going to talk to us about GCE Vulnerability Scanner. After that, we'll have a talk on, by Tom Clark on mental block.
DistroBox.
DistroBox will be Tom Clark's main talk coming up later this evening. Turning it over to Lee.
All right, Gary, thank you. Get the presentation started here. And there we go. All right. What, 3 or 4 years ago, we had clients that we support, and in the SMB, SME space, nothing fancy. And I was looking for a way to scan their networks once a week, something like that, just to see if there's anything on the network that shouldn't be on the network. And so I stumbled across the Greenbone vulnerability scanner, and I was pretty impressed with it. But I'm using it for about 5 years now. It's well supported. It gets regular updates. So I wanted to show everybody else how to do it. And it's actually, fairly trivial to start. To start off with, it is open source. It is free. It uses the Open VAS, Open Vulnerability Assessment Scanner. Anybody that's in security knows that a scanner is just part of the process. It's used to identify possible vulnerabilities within machines or systems on the network, and or identify machines that shouldn't be on the network. I'll show you some examples of that as we get going. But there are a lot of other pieces of the security puzzle, and I don't mean to imply that a vulnerability scanner is the only piece you need to worry about. Just that it's a pretty important one. It's fairly simple to run, and it doesn't take a lot of effort to maintain. And it provides a benefit, because if somebody has something like an old XP machine that actually comes up on the network, and somebody happens to use it to go out on the web, the whole building could be compromised. So what we're talking about here is the scanner is basically identifies security weaknesses. Like I said, we're in the SMB, SME space, so it fits pretty well. We've got, 10 or 11 clients around town where we set it up, and it just runs automatically. I set them to run every week. Again, I'll show you how to do it. And it's also a great example of using Docker and things like that. Why do you want to do it? It's a good way to find those vulnerabilities. There are a lot of compliance that you may get involved with. GDPR over in Europe, HIPAA over here. I'm not sure how it plays into PCI. I haven't looked at that in about 15 years, but the whole point of a scanner is
very much a thing.
Say again?
PCI is very much a thing. I'm dealing with this at work with a different scanner.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, like I say, I know it's a thing, but I haven't dealt with it since I was hosting credit card processing in house, and I gave up on that once PCI finally hit, and the credit card company said, well, you got to have this 30-page report done by before we renew your agreement at the end of the year. And I said, the heck with it, I just went to Stripe. GCE is also an excellent fit in the world of open source tools. Everybody here knows about them, I'm certain. But it's amazing how when they talk to a client and try to educate them a little bit without totally blowing them away, they realized that, hey, yeah, there might be some benefit to having a tool set here that's well supported, gets updated regularly. It uses the global database of vulnerabilities, all with a couple caveats we'll talk about here in a few minutes. It is very cost effective, and it is very user friendly because it's been, some of the updates here in the past few years have greatly improved the user interface. GCE, again, GCE is the Greenbone Community Edition. It is a comprehensive vulnerability scanner and detection, provides decent reporting, and allows you to send emails and things like that if you happen to hit high priority vulnerability. It is updated regularly, although we'll see here in a few minutes, it is not as fast as the commercial version. So they say anywhere from 2 days to a week or so behind the commercial product they put out, but you still get them. And most of the stuff sitting on the network isn't of that high a priority that you need to worry about those 2, 3, 4, 5 days. So the chance of a 0-day hitting is pretty small in an organization with 10 or 15 computers. As I say, community supported. It is defensively the first step in security policies, no cost, open source. Greenbone has an excellent reputation. We've had a couple different presentations on this before. Although most people using it use it as part of a larger tool set, like they've got Kali Linux running on a VM in the operation. That's a great environment, but there's a heck of a lot of time there that takes to manage it, to run the updates. And for that reason, I've never even really played with Kali that much. That's why I like the Greenbone, because I'll show you how to set it up in Docker, and it'll run on anything Linux, I should say. I have no idea if they have Windows versions of the containers. It is kind of, a lot of people consider it a benchmark for assessment tools. Some people criticize it for requiring technical expertise to operate effectively, but I would propose that those people complaining are the Windows users that don't know anything about anything other than clicking a mouse. GCE is widely used across the globe, frequently referenced. I'll put these slides out to Stan, and he'll get them up posted next week. We talked about the database. The user community is gangbusters. They're, like I was saying, the changes that are made in the last couple of years have been an order of magnitude better than it was before that time. You can also run it in any environment, simple deployment. Everything is automated, and I run a cron job once a week to force updates on the feeds. All I do is once a month. I don't even have email set up yet because we've never really found a serious problem, but I just go in once a month and look at the scans, see if there's any high priority vulnerabilities. As I mentioned before, there are 2 different editions. The community edition, GCE, open source, community supported. You pay a penalty on the feeds, so a few days to a week or so delay. If you have a higher priority, if you have PCI requirements or HIPAA requirements where you need to take action immediately, then you need the commercial product. GCE, again, is scanning, open source. You can run it. I'm going to show you Docker. You can also run it in a VM, or you can build an appliance for it. Reporting is basic. There aren't many third-party integrations and no customer support, although if the community is pretty good about people that will answer questions. GSM, Greenbone Security Manager, on the other hand, is enterprise grade, commercial licensing. You can have any kind of appliance you want, hardware or virtual. It provides good scalability, extensibility, comprehensive tools, and they will even give you a service level agreement if you want to pay for it. All right, let's get started. It's not that hard to do. Give me 1 second here. And let's see, you guys have a screen here, black screen with a prompt.
Yep.
Okay. There is one thing you want. Basically, here's the link, greenball, github.io. There is a, let them look. Oh, that's the docs. That's the docs. Sorry, that's not the Docker Compose. I'll put the link to Docker Compose up here. So basically what I do is this is the Docker Compose that you download. It's all pretty straightforward. There's nothing really weird in it. I just downloaded this afternoon. It creates a bunch of volumes for you. And what I do is I just create a symlink to the current version, because when you run Docker Compose, it will automatically look for the docker-compose.yaml. And you're off and running.
And what was the passphrase needed for?
The new YAML file, or the new Docker Compose file, requires you to log in to GitHub or to Docker to pull the images. So I had to set up pass, and that is my passphrase on the private key that I set up with GPG.
Okay.
And it took me about a half an hour to set that up today.
That is a large Docker Compose file. Like, this seems like enterprise grade something here. You got Redis and everything. MQTT, I saw.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's jump out to a live machine. There are 6 containers running all the time, 2 or 7 rather, 2, 4, 6, 7. Notice that these are all live Greenbone containers. This particular version has been up for 3 weeks. Here's another one. That's interesting. One of them has 6 and one of them has 7. It's not that uncommon for them to break. I never bothered to figure it out. All I do is run an update. This is the update script. Like I say, I run it once a week, or if I notice something's crashed, I'll just go in and look at it run it manually. Here's the docs for feed synchronization. The docs are excellent. I can't say enough about them. Tells you everything that's going on. And like I say, a lot of this documentation has just been published in the last couple of years. I don't know if there's new people on the team or people are just getting around to filling in the holes. But you know, it's fantastic. I can't say enough good things about it. And this guy is running here locally. And let's see, where's my browser? This is the standard URL. GCE runs on local port 9392. If you are running a remote machine, that might cause you some concern, but I'll show you in a minute here a trick that I use. I don't even bother with it. Let me find the right one here. Oh, sorry. This one doesn't have the authentication yet. I didn't set the password. Let me go ahead and kill that. What I do is I have a list of reverse tunnels set up. And whenever I want to talk to a client, either router or GCE, like here's the penny that we were just looking at. I bring up that reverse tunnel and I go out and 9392. And this is the actual live one of our clients. It used to be you had all kinds of, or the UI was basically splattered across the top here. And it was a lot of these topics were buried in the menu system and it was just kind of ugly. But now, you know, it's, I mean, I like it. The last few updates here this summer have just improved a lot of it. The whole idea here is you set up a task, a scan you want to do. This is internal network. There are different ones. This is the default open fast scanner. Full and fast. All assets scheduled. It runs Wednesday, 1 o'clock in the morning, or 5:30 a.m. rather. Took 91 or 21 minutes last time. And let's see, internal network. Here's the definition of internal network. They are 192.168.1.0/24, 254 hosts, all TCP ports. Yeah.
The IANA assign ports to me is a significant subset of the 65,000 K possible. And also, would you speak to the difference between OpenVAS and Greenbone? It seems like OpenVAS is a component behind Greenbone.
OpenVAS is a different component of the Greenbone community environment.
Okay.
That is the scanner used by the Greenbone system. Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Sure. You know, it's not every port, but it's every one of them that people care about. Yeah, it goes up to 49,150. And like I say, every time it runs, I keep 90 days. So here's the one December 8th. There were some hits here. and you can look at the scans, see what, if they completed. Like here's a couple that didn't, or let's see, there were none here. These all finished. Once in a while, a scan won't finish for some reason. Scans in an internal network. These are the results in the database. One of the issues that I haven't figured out yet, when you see a result, the first thing you have to do, you know, here they're listed by severity, you need to go over and look at the date. The results don't disappear or don't get purged when you purge the report. In other words, the oldest report here is September 19th, but yet results go all the way back to July, which is weird.
Yeah.
But you know, like I say, it's a minor problem because all of these 7.5 results, most of them are old, and there's something weird going on with the Samba installation on this server out of all the ones that we scan, because this is the only one that complains about these vulnerabilities. If you need to look at vulnerabilities, there's an entire database here. Here's the assets involved in the scans.
Any idea how big the vulnerability database is? How many vulns it'll check for?
Yeah, let's see here. How can I move this? There's 58 that were hit. In other words, 58 had positive results.
I would interpret that.
I'm not sure I know, Grant.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's the entire feed.
Yeah, I'm just trying to roughly quantify some of the ones I've worked with before. It's like 5 to 10,000 different things it will check each time, or can if you tell it to. And I was just curious how how big its corpus was.
That is a good question. Somewhere down here should be, okay, here's NVTs, but these are only, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't, CVEs. I don't see any, these are all hits. These don't tell you how many are in the database.
So you're certainly getting reports on things that you would not know about if you weren't running the scanner. So it's providing value.
Right. And probably 70 or 80% of this I've never explored, because basically I just want to see a scan against the database of vulnerabilities once a week that I can use to identify a problem, should one exist. Okay, back down here in configuration, here's the schedule. You can see that the Wednesday weekly, first run in February 2023, next run tonight, runs every week. And let's see, where's the time? Yeah, 11:30 p.m. Let me close this for a second and jump back and look at a different one. This guy is, this is one with two scans, or two tasks rather, internal scan and depot. These guys repair like handheld computers. And I'm not talking, you know, they do Android stuff, but I'm talking about they put out maintenance contracts on stuff that's 20, 25 years old. And they'll keep it live. You can see on the shelf up there, there's 7 or 8 handheld scanners here in the shop that I've worked on in the past. They can fix them. They do component level repair.
Nice.
Anyway, in the depot, you know, I get high value vulnerabilities all the time because they actually have a bunch of Windows XP stuff sitting on their network, but it's not connected to the internet. You know, these are dedicated devices. You know, like here's Windows XP EOL detection. All right, okay, these are Windows 7. I've seen XP here also. Yeah, here's an XP, Windows XP.
Have you considered exceptions for some things for them? Like, yes, we know these are there. Don't report on this issue for this system. It's a conversation.
No, because it just takes me, you know, 30 seconds every few weeks just to scan it. And I can see these. I know what the IP ranges are. These are all DHCP. You know, it amazes me how they get so many alerts on a single IP. I haven't figured that out for the same vulnerability.
Are they different scan dates? Looks like it.
Yep, you're right. One of these days they'll figure out how to purge the old ones.
Looks like there's 77,000 results in your database there.
Yeah. And 103 individual vulnerabilities that have been found. Yeah, see, some of these are pretty old. What is this guy? Windows 10? Yeah, something weird here in Windows 10. Anyway, any questions?
Is that phrased correctly? Is something weird in Windows 10, or is it just there's something weird, period, Windows 10? Stop that, Gary.
So
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
The findings that it reports, what kind of value do you get from them as the sysadmin or network admin for your clients?
You know, for example, they had some updates done last spring, and let's see, I don't think that's in their database anymore or in the reports anymore. I found a Windows 7 machine that alerted when it shouldn't have been there because I knew it had been retired. It turns out nobody bothered to turn the VM off. And if anybody had used that in a internet fashion that opened an attack vector, no telling what kind of damage could have been done. So basically they told me where the host was, so I jumped over there and shut it down.
Okay.
Can you tell me whatever magic you're using on that in that remotes folder where you had all those things, or is that a separate talk?
These?
Yeah, what is this?
These are all like this guy here. This GCE,
Oh,
it's reverse tunnel from this internal IP port 9392 to 9392 on my machine using this host.
gotcha. So basically, if you go to that port on your machine, it's gonna forward it to that machine. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Is that what the dash capital L does?
Well, capital L is the reverse tunnel. In other words, the forward tunnel would be to forward my port or forward my connection from here to there. The minus capital L does forwards this port connection to my machine so that when I go to this port on my machine, it automatically forwards back to the remote host.
Cool.
And this is what I use all the time. We've got a jump server. There's like 20 machines on 20 different ports on that jump server. I can SSH to any one of them. In fact, this connection is actually a remote connection. Let's see, that's D9A. This is the tunnel that gives me access to that machine. If anybody would like a copy of this, I'll be happy to pass it around. But on this machine, there are two files that are important. Check link is a cron job that runs every 5 minutes to see if the link is up. And the config here is the one that specifies where it's going. Description. So if I get an email when it restarts, I see it. That's where to send the email. Local port on the remote end. The target on Apollo, which is our jump server. That's where the connection goes. And then here's the physical reverse SSH command.
So are you running that on something like that on each of your remote client systems, and they're
Right.
linked back into something at your location, providing what it considers a remote tunnel? So from your location, you hit the port and it goes through the client side initiated tunnel.
Correct.
I like the wrappers.
Yeah. And I've also got a, where am I? Glass pen.
Wait, I'm not quite following that. So you do this and then you run something against the port on that machine, but it's actually running against some remote host. Is that the point?
Let me back up a second. This is a remote machine down in not Webster Groves, the Grove down there by Shafley. And the check link config on that machine, hang on a second. And this cron job runs every 5 minutes. It does check link. It looks to see if there is a process to Apollo. That's our jump server. And if that process does not exist, it'll restart it. And I also have a reset link that once a day it will actually reset it, take it down, and let it restart. Because sometimes links aren't stable. I don't need to use it here because these guys are on fiber. With Charter and some of the other services that used to exist, like fiber, like Ethernet over copper or stuff like that. I reset it, once or twice a day, just to make sure we keep the link up. So this is a remote machine, and this check link config governs how the tunnel is set up from the remote machine back to Apollo. So check link sets up a reverse tunnel from this machine to Apollo, such that when I SSH to Apollo on this port, it automatically forwards to port 7722 on the other end, which is localhost on D9 archive.
And do you have SSH running on an alternate port or something?
Yes.
Okay. So would it be fair to describe this as you kind of have two halves to the process where all your clients in the field establish a remote tunnel back to a jump server, and then on your workstation in your office, when you need it, you SSH to that remote port that the client's created, and you can get all the way into the client via the jump server?
Right. I SSH to the jump server at this port 65423. In fact, if you remember that,
Does that make sense, Sean?
Yep, I'm following.
It's kind of two halves joining in the middle.
Yeah. I think I've heard of a way to set this up using SSH config as well, where it'll like forward the SSS agent or SSH agent along or something.
well, you can use SSH config to set it up as a jump server. You can use a capital J to say, okay, log into this and then log into another machine, but you have to have the reverse tunnel because there's no way to physically get past the firewall on that end. Because
okay.
the local port there, 7722, is not open from to the outside.
Oh, okay.
That's why you have to have the reverse tunnel.
Gotcha.
And then this is a line in my SSH config with 65423, so that when I did that command a while back, SSH D9A, that link established to this port on Apollo, which was automatically forwarded to 7722 on that remote host D9A. Make sense?
Yeah.
Clear as mud, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, thank you guys. And I shall turn it over to Gary for the GUI middle.
Thank you very much. That was Lee Lammert from Omnitech Corp. And he was talking about using the Greenbone, the GBC vulnerability scanner. Thank you. Lightning little tutorial. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go to our main speaker in just a few minutes. But first, as Lee said, we're in that GUI middle. So announcements. First announcement. Normally, the new users log would be next week on Tuesday. And this month it is being canceled for, as Stan likes to refer to it, it's the holiday schedule. So there will not be a new users log meeting this month. Everyone should come back in January, but it will not be a December meeting of the new users log. So, and if I could pull up my calendar for a moment, I'll verify what that date is. Yeah, that meeting was supposed to be Tuesday the 17th, and holiday schedule, so it won't be until next the January 28th meeting will be the next new user meeting. Let's see. Other tidbits here. I've got a point here. There was a note in Discuss. It was from Jay Truesdale. And he had asked anybody to respond. He said that he's playing with his cable modem and ran a speed test. He got 646 megabytes down and 384 megabytes per second up. And he was wondering if anybody else had tested with upload speeds with something other than Ookla's speed test. Nobody's responded. And come on, somebody in our user group has to be doing some good tests.
Well, I got 453 by 419.
Okay.
But
I got almost a full gig.
Okay. What are you on?
Charter Spectrum. I have a DOCSIS 3.1 modem and they're gigabit Ethernet, and I got almost a full gig on my upload.
Okay. Both
Not
ways?
bad.
Yeah,
Both
symmetric
ways,
now.
Ben? Oh, cool. Okay. And Lee, I think Lee was about to say that he may not be your typical user since he's doing this test from inside the bat cave and has some nice fiber that AT&T.
Yeah, I actually got two of them. I got a gig for the office and 50 meg for the rack.
Yeah.
But no, the comment I was going to make is, why would you use Ookla? Just install a speed test CLI.
Okay. Speed test and spell it again.
Speed test dash CLI.
Dash CLI.
Standard package on every distro I've looked at.
Okay.
And that way you don't have to have no freaking GUI.
No, what's a GUI? A GUI would goo up the middle of your speed test right now. Okay. All right. We'll put some of those results out in reply to Jay's message. If anybody else thinks of any good feedback for Jay, go to the Discuss mailing list, please, and make a response. And we'll try and type these in for Jay. Okay. Let's see. Other items. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to specifically announce. Holiday parties. Sorry for those of you who are out of town, but every year there are holiday parties, physical gatherings, and different eateries and drinkeries around town. So if they're open parties for techie people, there used to be in the days before COVID, at least a few of them each year, and they're starting to reoccur again. So I believe, I think the last one I saw on the schedule is coming up on Monday, and I'll double check that as we speak. It is actually the Microsoft holiday party, and it's the .NET and the Azure group, and it's from 6 to 9 at 4 Hands in the district. So for those of you who are in the area physically and want to go to a physical holiday party, next Monday night's the last one that seems to be open invitation to techies around town, hosted by Microsoft user groups. So anybody knows of any other ones that are just invite any techie, by all means, send editor@sluug.org the invitation and we'll put it on the calendar for people. With that, anybody else have any announcements that need to be made? If not, anybody have any general questions? Don't have to necessarily apply to our topics of the evening, but just things that they've been working on, found a problem with, want to ask a question or make a point.
I was curious if anybody other than Lee and I attended the OpenSSL thing a few weeks ago. I found it very packed, very dense, and very useful, and I've already referred back to things.
Yeah, I thought it was excellent too.
Lee indicated it might be good source material to do a presentation around. So if anybody did go or had questions about SSL related stuff, feeders for topics. Yeah, I will get the link for the shared slide deck and I'll post it in the chat.
Excellent idea. Thank you, Grant. Okay. Any other questions, comments? After our main speaker, there'll be more time that people can use different ideas and questions, but for those who may not be able to stay around late, this is the chance. Okay, in that case, I think we'll move on to our main speaker since we are running a little late. So our main speaker tonight is Tom Clark. Tom Clark's a freelance software developer. He loves to tinker with things, many of them not even programming. We appreciate Tom coming in tonight. Tom had, I believe, given this talk or a variation of it at the 2600 meeting, I think. And so we thank him for coming and reprising it here tonight. So he's going to talk to us about DistroBox. With that, I'll turn it over to Tom.
Alrighty, let me go ahead and screen share here. All right, can everyone see the turtles?
Yep.
Yeah.
So basically everything we have for all of our technology, especially computers, is basically turtles upon turtles. For instance, when you start the computer, there's all sorts of little operating systems, like say you have BIOS or UEFI or whatever. That can maybe be your first turtle. The main turtle that we're going to deal with is we're loading into a Linux host machine. So that's probably this biggest turtle on the bottom right there. We're actually in the virtual machine already right now. So let's go ahead and let's do a CPU.
Can you bump that
So,
font a couple times?
what was that there?
Can you enlarge that font a couple times?
How's that?
Much better.
All right, so we can see our hypervisor vendor right here is KVM. So we are on a Linux host and machine using hardware virtualization through the Linux kernel. So we've already got a couple of turtles here. We're on this turtle right now. And so let's go ahead and add another turtle by using DistroBox. So the manual pages for DistroBox are pretty extensive here. You may wonder, like, why do I care about using DistroBox though? So it's kind of like a why though. I think you may have seen this meme before. Containers have a bunch of different types of runtimes. You have Docker, Podman, Linux containers, LXC stuff, etc. And why do you want to use DistroBox? Well, you can write a bunch of your own scripts to exercise things like Podman yourself and do all of the things that you want and integrating them with your host, like sharing the graphics server or something like that. Things like Flatpak have their own little thing, that bubble wrap that does a similar sort of thing, so shares a bunch of stuff, so you don't have to like manually do those sorts of things. DistroBox is basically a command line tool to get any Linux distribution you want, share all of those things. It shares like your home directory by default. It shares your graphics server. It shares all of your devices. So you don't have to do that yourself. That's pretty much why you want to use DistroBox. Why do you not want to use DistroBox? For the same reason, it shares all of that stuff, right? So it's mainly giving you convenience more than anything. And the manual pages are pretty straightforward on it. That's really all the documentation you need to get started on it. It's a relatively new project. I believe like the first commits is around like 2019 or something like that. So mainly when I do programming, if I've ever had issues with conflicts between libraries or like packages I don't need, I just have to spin up another virtual machine or like clone a virtual machine. And, that's a real hassle that takes a bunch of time. DistroBox really simplifies that process to where you can get almost any distribution that you want. Let's go, for instance, into compatibility here. So it sounds like most people are familiar with containers in general here. So any OCI image that you get from wherever is going to be able to be used in DistroBox for the most part. Even if it's not quite exactly supported, if it's close enough, like any Debian Durian, for instance, is going to be just fine. And you can just pull those in by either specifying the image specifically, or they have a number of container distros built in that already have, where they're going to be sourced from, like Quay.io or, Docker Hub, etc. Now, one that is going to not be in there is going to be Nix. I heard that mentioned a little bit earlier. People are liking immutable distributions. And the two main ones are OS tree based and Nix based. Now, Nix as a guest is not supported yet, and they're suggesting that you use a few other tools if you really want to be under Nix and then have Nix guests. Now, Nix, of course, supports it as the host, so that you can leverage everyone else's distributions whenever you're inside of Nix. And so even though you're on Nix, you can have access to the entire package manager of Arch or Debian or whatever. So that's really convenient. So let's go ahead and start with our first commands here. So DistroBox ls is going to list what we have, which is absolutely nothing at this point. Let's go ahead and create one. Name, let's just do Debian, for instance. You can specify which image you want. So we could do Debian latest, or if you want to, you could specify like 10 or any specific version that's going to pull in. So let's go ahead and create that. Forgot one thing. Very good. So that's created. It already had the image local, so we didn't have to pull anything in. So let's go ahead and turn to it. So what is it doing here? It's making sure that it has all of the things installed that it needs to share the container with your host operating system, essentially. And it doesn't normally need to do this on every single startup. It only does this, when we created something fresh like this from a very minimal image that it pulled for Debian. It takes just a little bit, not too long. Okay, so we're inside now. So it set it up all the packages it needs. It shared all of our devices. It mounted the file system, etc., home directory, blah blah blah. And then it's set up so that we can, do rootful things within our container. Now, by default, this is not going to do rootful things inside the container that affect our operating system itself. So if you try to go to some sort of file and do something, even using sudo inside the container, it's not going to work. There is a special flag for that. So if you go into DistroBox, do create. Now here is where you're going to specify that it could have root that reaches out to your host operating system, which usually you don't want. In pretty much 100% of the cases for my use case, I don't want that. So now we're inside Debian. The host operating system is Fedora. Can't see release. Okay, so we are on Fedora 41 in our host operating system, which is in a virtual machine. And now we are inside our Debian machine. Let's go ahead and do that. Release. There we go. It says Debian. Let's really make sure it's Debian. Okay, there we go. Now we're pretty sure it's Debian, since we have app now, and you can move with us. Sure, everyone's seen this before. It's like been around since like the 90s. Any questions so far? Nope. All right. One thing that people kind of get hung up on is the difference between virtual machines and containers. It may not be this group in particular, but for instance, even though we are inside this container, let's see what kernel that we're using. We're still using Fedora. So some people get hung up on that, thinking that somehow we're going to be using a different kernel, which should be, the virtual machine type swap out there. It's going to use a different kernel and then directly communicate with the hardware, whereas then we're in the container, so it's going to communicate with the kernel, and everything else is sort of routed through the kernel that we're using. So most of the time that isn't a problem, but if you diverge too much, something could eventually become a problem there. One of the use cases for this is everyone familiar with like flat packs and snaps, I'm assuming, with this group? No nays there, so I'll take
Yes.
that as a yes.
Yeah.
So whenever you look at snaps and flat packs, like there's a lot of sketchy stuff posted there that's not verified at all. So you might not be comfortable downloading that. Like say Signal, for instance. Usually if you're using Signal, you value security in some type of form. So we go to flat type here and we look at Signal desktop that comes up. Someone has put it up here, but it's completely unverified. So it's just random people doing it. They may be completely fine people and there's nothing in there that's like a Trojan or anything. But it's kind of sketch and you might not want to put that on your machine and use your actual Signal through it because it could be scraping, whatever. Also, if you prefer snaps rather than flat packs, you go over to the snap store and it's like, okay, well, it's a Snapcraft. They have a decent reputation that they're trying to build, but you still may not be comfortable with that. Whereas, the Signal people themselves have a package for Signal Desktop for Linux, but the problem here is we're on Fedora, and it's like, well, you look at this, and it's like, oh, well, this is for Debian. I don't run Debian. How am I going to use this? Well, you could, build something yourself and then make your own container and all sorts of things like that. Or since we just created a Debian container extremely easily with very little hassle that shared everything with our host, well, let's just copy and paste this and install Signal. Saves you a little bit of time. There we go.
So you're in your Debian container there, right? Is that the idea?
Correct. And one of the funny little things, because it's called DistroBox, whenever you go into one of your containers on the command line, it'll have this little box right here that you can see. And then it also says, whatever user at, your container. So I just like the box. The box is a nice touch right there. So now this is running out of the container and we have Signal available inside Fedora now with very minimal fuss. We didn't have to build any containers ourselves, compile anything, any of that nonsense. It's just there for us. Now, one thing to note is it's only available inside the container. So say we go out into our main operating system here. I can make that larger again. There we go. Note that we are inside the Debian container right now. We go into our main container, we're in Fedora, and we type signal desktop. Yeah, can't type today. It's not here. Or signal. Oh, nothing's here, right? So DistroBox has a really easy way of solving this problem for us. Is DistroBox export to app and then signal desktop. All right. So it says application so the stepx, exported, wait a few seconds, etc. Is everyone familiar with the desktop files for all of the stuff for the GUI? Probably.
Vaguely.
Okay.
Are those files different depending on what DE you're using, or is KDE and GNOME use the same files?
They use like the same stuff. It's kind of standard. So we're inside right here. There's also I'm in Sway right now, which is on Wayland. I used to use i3 on X, and so anyway, that's why it might look a little different than i3. But there's two different types of runs here. There's run and drun, and that's basically the difference between doing a run and a drun on a particular application. So right now it only exported the desktop file because this is an application. So that's why it's only coming up with an entry here for drun. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, now we started that on the main main host system inside this VM. We just did it using the little command line launcher there, so we can do it here as well. Maybe that's not refreshed yet. Oh, not sure why that's having an issue. It's having fine there. Huh. Well, that's not refreshing for whatever reason. Look into that later. So we are outside of the container now, since you can just do a Control D and go outside. And right now, that's our only two containers. Now, say you want to upgrade all your containers at once. They have easy command for that. DistroBox upgrade right here is what we're looking for. So you just go ahead and go to that guy. So this makes it, assuming it's fully supported, it will automatically call your package manager and upgrade anything that needs upgrading for you, which is very helpful and easy to manage all of your containers with. Looks like I'll let chat in here. So that shouldn't even be possible that Sean T said. What was that in reference to? Or shouldn't be an option?
I was talking about the -- root option there. Like that shouldn't even be an option. It's like that log4j vulnerability that was really big. What was it, earlier this year or last year or whatever,
Mhm.
where it's like, hey, this logging library can all of a sudden execute arbitrary commands. It's like that shouldn't even be a feature. And I feel the same way about this -- root. Like that shouldn't even be, because that's just an attack vector, right? It's like it shouldn't even exist.
Well, there's two different ways to look at that. One is you could actually run the DistroBox container itself, like run DistroBox enter as root itself, sudo DistroBox enter, etc. And that is even worse than running something like creating a DistroBox that has the root access embedded into it. It's not going to automatically let you do things. There's still like a block on it. It's not going to like automatically just let the container do whatever it wants to any file that would require root. So it's probably not as bad as it sounds. They just kind of leave that trap door in there, just in case you have like some sort of weird use case that needs it.
Right, because it's still only, you're still inside the container, you're still only gonna have access to whatever's mounted, right? And hopefully they're only mounting like your home directory and things in what, probably like sys or something for like USBs and stuff. But hopefully they're not mounting much more than that, right?
Yeah, they're not doing too much there. And one thing to note is it's an opt-in. So like say you're talking with Log4j where you could arbitrarily embed something into a serialized object and then it, you know, whenever it's deserialized, it, you know, does stuff. Yeah, that there wasn't really like a way to opt out of that if someone would have used that. Um, Here you're very deliberately opting in to being able to do that. So that's kind of like a different um, situation, I think. I could, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's true.
Like
I'm-
you have to very deliberately shoot yourself in the foot. It's not an accidental shoot yourself in the foot.
You say that, yet I'm looking at notifications from Gen2 security, and the first message was DistroBox arbitrary code execution. Came out
That's
earlier
interesting.
today.
I'll have to take a look at what that's about.
Seems to be version 1.7.0.1. So
I'm just wondering like where the injection of arbitrary code happens at exactly. Like, is it you already have access to your host machine as if you're using DistroBox normally, or is it something like a malicious container somehow does something, or
no
you know,
idea.
that sort of thing? That'll be interesting to explore after the talk, actually. Has anyone else used user mode Linux kernel as a user executable to run a different kernel inside the containers? I do not think so. That would be something fun to explore. And then run versus drun, explain that one already. Oh, and then someone linked the CVE here for us to go look at.
Looks like it was back in March, so it's pretty old.
Oh, it's probably fixed already then. But what was it exactly?
Let me find, because what I'm looking at looks to be something brand new.
Yeah, go ahead and link it in chat if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'm dealing with VNC and multiple things and multiple nesting turtles all the way down and have to bring things across.
While we're to pause here, Tom, it just occurred to me, does DistroBox support chain virtualization?
No, I don't think so. If I'm understanding what you mean by that.
Yeah, basically, if you're running on a host with KVM or Zen kernel, then chain virtualization makes those virtualization functions available in the VM or container. But I guess you can do it in a VM. I didn't know if that was something they can do in their style container.
I don't think so.
Okay, so it is what Sean linked to, but Gen2 released something today about it. Weird.
Maybe they finally integrated the fix or something. They're a little slower than
I don't know.
getting their
Maybe.
stuff in. Or, I mean, March would be a little excessive though.
Yeah. I mean, it just Murphy timing on your presentation. It looks very interesting. Going through email, it's like, hey, security announcement for DistroBox.
The biggest security things for DistroBox would probably be its underlying runtime, because you can use say Docker or Podman, or there's actually one called Lillipod. Don't know if anyone's heard of that. It's made by the creator of DistroBox himself. He made himself kind of like, you know, just a proof of concept toy container runtime himself. And DistroBox, of course, supports it. By default, it uses Podman unless you want to opt into using one of the other runtimes. So this CVE was arguments passed to exported binaries are interpreted by the shell. I like how there's a misspelling there on the GitHub issue. Interpreted by the shell and can result in unexpected behaviors and syntax errors. So it's not too bad one.
I think the commit I saw was like quoting $1 was like the fix or something.
Interesting. Okay. What's going on there? Okay. That was a caps lock. All right. So back to DistroBox upgrade. Yeah, that's where we were. So you can upgrade these all just en masse with an all flag, or you can choose which specific DistroBox that you want to upgrade at any given point in time. We just created this, so yeah, we didn't really have much to do. So, but that's a really easy way to manage all your VMs. I usually create, or containers rather. I usually create a different container for each one of the clients or something I'm working in specifically. Like I have a different one that I use for Rust versus something else. So when you accumulate a lot of these, that can save you a lot of time. And it's just really easy. And the DistroBox stop, I think that one's rather obvious. We don't really need to run that one. DistroBox host exec is really interesting. You can be inside the DistroBox and run a command on the host. I've not had a specific use case for that, nor did I find one explained to me very well why I would care about that. So yeah, DistroBox assemble, that's an interesting one. So DistroBox has DistroBox assemble to where you can create a file that says, I want to have these sorts of things in my container by default, like additional packages and whatnot. I usually just run my own file because for Debian or whatever, or Fedora, I kind of just have my own files for shell files for what I want installed on them by default. So I don't really find too much use for this file unless you want to take advantage of more esoteric things, such as actually giving the container root access to the host, or this NVIDIA flag is actually really interesting. Let's go ahead and talk about that for a moment. Does anyone do stuff with machine learning and like CUDA type stuff or anything like that?
I run Olama occasionally, but the API costs are so cheap on these cloud services that I usually end up using those instead.
Yeah, it's expensive to get good cards that'll actually run fast. That's for sure. So by default for all of your Intel and AMD sort of stuff, that's all going to be passed in without you having to do anything. There's this NVIDIA flag that will try to integrate the host NVIDIA drivers into the guest container right here. And some people have difficulty with that, so they have to pass even more stuff in for CUDA to be able to get that stuff to run. That's just kind of like a heads up if you're on NVIDIA hardware and you're trying to do stuff like that. You could run into some interesting issues there. Since we're in DistroBox Create, the manual page, let's go ahead and go over some stuff there. I have the images that we're using pulled down already right now, so it hasn't been asking me. But normally it would prompt you to ask. This is, just a bypass for that, of course. You can also clone from whatever image that you have. In terms of versioning for the containers, it's not built in currently. So like you would need to version a container yourself using Podman directly rather than through the DistroBox stuff. So And maybe at some point they'll put that in and just pass it through, or they may not want to, because they don't like to really duplicate what someone else is doing well, it seems like. Now, since DistroBox by default does share absolutely everything that it can, well, pretty close. There is an unshare all right here. That will unshare basically everything by default, except for it still has access to your home directory. And that'll be about it. And whenever you do that, it won't be able to see any of the processes on its host or anything like that. So I don't have too much occasion to use it, since I usually just use it for development, and I'm primarily using it to keep having any sort of binary conflicts, package conflicts, that sort of thing. But some people do have use cases for it. It's all fine. So here are some environmental variables that you can set. So if you just always wanted to pull images, you can set that and it'll never ask you again, which usually on my host that I actually use, I set that because it's like, yeah, sure, why not pull the image, right? Unless you're tethered to some sort of connection that has limitations on it, maybe you want to turn that off, but that's a very rare scenario, especially with Starlink being so prolific now. And that's unlimited data. Now you can set the host name and default container name, etc. You can use different sudo programs. I don't mess around with that. Perhaps someone else has a different preference there. Each to their own, right? It's what the whole sort of Linux type space is about, is people can kind of go their own way. It's customizable, right? It's not forcing you into doing things a particular way. So next, DistroBox ephemeral. That's an interesting one. It will create a container, and while you're in that, everything's good. As soon as you exit it, it destroys it. Now, something that I skipped over that I should do is, so let's go ahead and do DistroBox enter Debian. So we're back inside of our Debian container because we got our little box there. It's not from Amazon, probably. So that's our default working folder here. And what's our home? Okay, so that's interesting. It shared our home, right? There is a feature that we can use to have a different home directory so that we don't get our dot files stomped on and actually keep them separate. I usually use that just to keep everything separate so they don't get stomped on. So let's go ahead and create one with that. You're up a bit. Yeah.
I think it's because you're inside the distro box, so you're
Oh,
trying to
yep,
do like
you are correct, sir.
right now.
I just can't type today.
I think you're gonna want to call in between the Debian and the latest.
Very good.
while we're waiting for that, when you had talked about the NVIDIA option, and it saying try for the NVIDIA. So if there are problems with that, where's the best way of trying to resolve that? Is there good documentation from NVIDIA, or you have to search around through user groups to figure out what the necessary
I thought the
NVIDIA
solution
fixes
was throw away the Chromebook, and get a real laptop.
are?
So there's actually okay.
Wow, it really doesn't like you.
Yeah, I'm always on VPNs.
AIs are getting smarter all the time.
Okay, we're done with that. There we go. Thanks, DuckDuckGo.
Quack.
Quack.
So there's a there's a lot of useful tips here. This is just like the start of it, of doing all sorts of weird things that most people don't really have too much of a use case for. And then down here, yeah, so most of your NVIDIA stuff will probably work fine with the NVIDIA flag, but if you start doing CUDA stuff, you may need to get their stuff and then, you know, pass these values in to get it to run.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff on the useful tips here. Also, yeah, that reminds me. Yeah, using Podman or Docker to version your containers, because that's not built in. You can hop down directly into those, stuff like that.
Thank you.
Where are we at here? Oh, somewhere in there. Let's use Debian. Okay. Center. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what our home directory is. Now it has its own home. So it's going to have everything separate, not stomp on your dot files, and put whatever in there. Like if you're installing Rust using Rust up, all your Rust versions are going to be in there, etc. Stuff like that. What else in the docket here? List. Also, DistroBox LS is, you know, the same thing as DistroBox list. DistroBox RM here. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's going to remove it. So, too bad. What,
I have a
what next?
question. You're
Sure.
on Fedora, and they're pushing Toolbox instead of DistroBox.
Mhm.
And from what I can tell, it just seems like a less featureful version of pretty much the same thing. Is that your read on it? Have you tried it at all?
Yeah, Toolbox is written in Go, and I may be wrong, but as far as I knew in the past, that it only supports Podman as your container runtime. And yeah, it just basically has less features written in Go. If you like, DistroBox is basically completely shell scripts, so that's what it's written in. Maybe some people don't like that and they would rather it be Go. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's a fairly accurate read on it. Also in terms of the exports, so let's say we I don't know if people are familiar with rip grep or not. It's a fully featured grep replacement that's like way faster than grep, and will use however many cores it has, etc. It finds things extremely quickly. So I like really installing that on all of my machines. Now, we just installed that inside of this container, which doesn't have our box for some reason, which kind of threw me. Anyone else notice that? So like we logged out here. So we're actually on the host right now. So this is like some sort of bug going on, I think. So we are on the host right now. Then let's go ahead and enter into that. You see how the prompt didn't change with our little box here? Yeah. So see, we are inside Debian, but the prompt right here is saying that for some reason. So we have encountered a bug.
Yeah, it must be, that prompt must be getting set in the other home, the main home.
No, I've not encountered that before. It's probably something like specifically with, let's actually try and, so I just started up a completely new terminal here. And let's go ahead and make it bigger again. And then let's do that one. Now it's doing the same thing here. Let's do just the normal Debian. Oh, so it's something bugged with that specific one. That's interesting. Huh. So let's go into the home here. We exported that app earlier for Signal. You can also do that with binaries. So do DistroBox export binary, and we had just used the RG inside there. So let's go ahead and do RG. Oh, wait, we have a problem. We can't find RG. So this is kind of like a enhancement that would be nice, is you don't have to actually know the exact path to where that is. But now it's like, okay, we're good with that. So now we're back on the host. For certain this is on a host because it was just a new terminal that was opened. So now we have RG available on the host as well. So you can do that with both the apps that export the desktop file, and you can do that with any binary, period. All right. Any questions more right now? It's actually interesting that this one is bugged right here and it's reproducible. So I'm going to go ahead and snapshot this VM actually and see what's going on there. Are there any other questions so far? Nope. Is there any weird stuff that we want to explore?
Do you happen to know if DistroBox is using its own network namespace, or is it reusing the root namespace, root network namespace?
I believe it's reusing that. It's just sharing everything.
Yeah. I kind of assumed so, since you were able to get to GUI applications and display without a problem.
Yeah, its whole like purpose in life is to integrate with the host in every way possible. So.
It's kind of a change root on steroids, using container technology, not so much a more complete container. It
Yeah,
seems,
that's a.
and there's definitely places for that.
Yeah, I mean, use a tool for what it's made for, right? When you want a screwdriver, you want a screwdriver, and when a hammer, you want a hammer.
And when I want dynamite, I want dynamite. Yeah. I don't care the state of system D. If I want the box to go down, I'll pull the power cord and I'll watch it go thump.
All right.
We're
Well,
getting illustrations out at this point.
I have a question that's kind of random here. So you're using Sway. I see you're using Sway. You told us you were. And are you using it in like some kind of tabbed mode instead of the tiling mode? Is that what we're seeing?
I
across the
mean,
top here?
I mean, the tiling mode is right here, like, so you can use the, stack, you can do various different, modes with it, right? You can use, the stack, or you
I
can
never
use
remember how to switch back to tiling. So I usually try to disable those modes. But yeah, no, it's like a default thing.
So, but these tabs are your window manager, not your terminal, right? These aren't tabs in your terminal. These are actually separate terminal processes.
Yeah, this isn't tmux. Yeah, each one of these is a separate, terminal process, and it's not tmux.
It seems kind of neat, but then I'm thinking about like web browsers that have the tabs on the top, and then it'd be like 2 rows of tabs up there. I don't know if I could deal with that.
Yeah. See that? Unless you use like tree style manager, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I use Sideberry in Firefox. That's pretty good. But
Yeah.
I have to hack the user Chrome to get it to pick the tabs off the top, though.
Yeah, very nice. Exactly how it should be.
I think that's available in Nightly. You don't even have to hack them off the top.
Is it as fully featured though? Because like, well, the other thing I really like is like in side or in whatever I use, Sideberry or whatever it is, you can create like different groups as well. So like I can have multiple groups of different side. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's pretty cool though.
Yeah, it saves you a lot of clicking if you can use a tiling window manager. For my host, I usually use you know, something more normal like GNOME or KDE or whatever, but usually if I'm in a programming environment, I use some sort of tiling window manager.
Yeah. James, are you still using? Are you still? Which one are you on now? You switch like every month. Which tiling you're on? Which one is? What's the flavor? It's December.
Hyperland.
Okay, yeah, I tried that one out recently too.
See a little auto load your config so you can make mistakes faster.
Yeah, that was pretty cool how you just save the file and it like automatically does that. You should share your config so I don't have to like because it's like it's very much like assemble your own DE, right? Like at least what I saw was very bare bones. You should share your config so I don't have to do all that.
It's more set up than like i3 or Sway at the beginning. At
Yeah.
least on Arch, it might be different if you compile it from source or something.
I just wasn't happy with the default Waybar or whatever it's called config, but then I'm also too lazy to go through and change it.
Configure it, yeah.
So I just went back to KDE and like I'll deal with this later.
Yeah.
Well, had a lot less to explain in this one since people understood containers and virtualization more than some other groups that I present this to. So kind of went through a little fast.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Pretty thorough. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep, just trying to get a little bit of awareness of it since it's kind of a new tool. And I found it extremely useful. Like I use it every day for all of my development now, pretty much.
Excellent stuff. Oh, Sean was mentioning Toolbox is kind of a competitor alternative Anybody else using something else that they find similar or?
Mainly mounting my home directory into Docker containers and hoping I don't break anything. That's my alternative.
I have something that plays in a very low level space for networking things. I created some scripts that use nsenter and unshare and will create, they are functionally containers. I'm not messing with file systems, but network namespace, UTS namespace, and a few other things. So I can create a tiny little system to then actually multiple and then create virtual networks between them to play with various things, test out ideas. It's using all the same things. They functionally are containers and work great.
Yeah, this is like, it's like the next step here, or it's like this feels like almost like one step away from the like bootsy stuff that Fedora and Red Hat are doing, or like the UBlue stuff. I don't know if it like messing with that, but there it's different obviously because you're like switching your entire operating system and booting into a whole different operating system, but it is very container based and image based and all that. So it feels a little similar. And I wonder, yeah, it's not really a competitor to this though. I feel like this solves a different, because you're not going to want to reboot your computer when you switch, you know, things projects or whatever.
Yeah, it's definitely a different niche because I can be in a single VM and have 3 different dev environments that are all conflicting, and just they get along.
Yeah, when you say it like that, it makes it sound like NixOS is also a competitor here because that's kind of its claim to fame is you can install all sorts of dependencies and they don't conflict because of the sim linking and the NixOS cache and all that it has, the Nix store.
Oh, nice comment. Documentation from NVIDIA. It's the funniest thing I heard all night. Well, that is what I had, unless people want to explore something else.
Cool. Anybody have any other alternatives, comparisons they want to make? If not, thanks a lot, Tom. This has really been a good little power tour explaining what it is in DistroBox. Something some of us have heard of, but haven't yet played with. So thank you for the introduction. Any other questions or comments that someone would like to direct to Tom while he's with us? I'm not saying Tom's going to go away, but just trying to finish up on anything specific to the DistroBox topic, and then we can throw it back open to general questions if anybody has any.
Yeah, Gary mentioned the 2600 group or something before that you gave this talk at that one. What does that group do? Or what are they all about?
They're primarily a security focused group. So there's this magazine 2600 back in the day. They're also the local 314 DEF CON group as well. So they're very security focused. So you'll have all sorts of people there just interested in security, hacking, like even stuff like lockpicking and whatnot, because you know, that's even a portion of pen testing, right? Is you like, oh, let's use a flipper 0 to clone someone's card and then get in, and it's like, oh, there's an actual physical lock on something. I need to pick that now, and then now finally I can get into that machine, that sort of stuff. So that's what they're about.
And as Tom said, it takes the 2600 part of the name from the magazine. 2600 is actually a worldwide organization, so there are chapters in many cities all over the world.
I was going to ask if the 2600 you're talking about here is officially affiliated with the magazine.
I believe they're the registered group here. Yeah,
Local chapter.
I'm not sure how official that makes things, like email someone or something.
Right.
I've never been sure, you know, what makes it official or what advantage or disadvantage is to it. I do know that I've been going to those meetings off and on for probably 20 years. And at that time, 20 years ago, they said they were part of that group. One of the odd things that I've always found is apparently worldwide, they meet on Friday night, the first Friday night of the month. And I have mentioned at a number of the meetings that this is what brands us geeks as nerds, is the fact that on a Friday night, we're sitting around where there's usually less than a 1 to 9 ratio of men to women. And
You mean the other way around?
the other way around, yeah. And I've suggested that, hey, we might get better attendance if we don't nerd out and do this on a Friday night. And I have always been shot down and told, no, the 2600 group demands that we meet on the first Friday night of the, okay, fine. So.
Yeah. So I think I was, and it sounds like they probably are related. But if it's, would the magazine acknowledge the local chapter as, yeah, you contact them, hey, where's a local group in this area, they would point back to, and not just somebody else writing the name coattails type thing. And it sounds like there's some actual relation. Not that it probably matters, but
I will point out that for as far back as I can remember, we have always listed the 2600 meeting on the SLUUG.org calendar. And it's always showing there on that monthly placeholder. And as soon as we find out what the topic of the month is, we usually try and put it in there. So the 2600 group, I think always meets physically. I don't know if they ever went to, during COVID, if they ever went to just online, but they have for the last at least 2 years been trying to always do hybrid meetings. They really kind of focus it more on the physical people there, but they do make it a hybrid available online. One other neat thing they do is about once a year, they throw a credentials party, so that you can come in and have people verify your online credentials.
I'm thinking of like a PGP signing party. I don't.
Yeah, it's a key signing party.
Okay.
Yep.
And
Keep
what
I
were we
also
talking
link-
about nerds? And now we're talking about key signing. Party? Really? Okay, got it.
I keep wanting to do more with PGP or GPG, but email the world I live in, SMIME is easier. And I don't know. And if you talk to some, there are a number of people in the cryptography community that are very much against PGP and GPG. And from what I can deduce, their concerns seem to be legitimate, but it's more along the lines of we're trying to keep governments, multinational corporations, and various other big money institutions, trying to keep them out of things. Like if they really want to get in, they're gonna find a way. We're tilting against them versus just something that's better than plain text. And PGP still does a very good job of that. It's kind of a weird dichotomy.
Reminds me of something I wanted to do as an announcement at the halfway, but it relates to the 2600 group. Our topic for next Thursday night, the monthly Linux user group meeting, we were going to have Joe.
This video comes to you from a field located in Northwest Ohio, where a DMI.
Okay.
Mute button was found. Please continue, Lee.
We were going to have Joe from the 2600 group speak next week, but there's been he's had something come up and he's not going to be able to make it. It was going to be about something that I can't pronounce.
Pongachi.
Say it again.
Pongachi.
Pongachi.
Oh, no. Ponagachi.
Oh, now I got you. Okay.
Okay.
Ponagachi.
Does that hurt?
When I say it, it does. Anyway, something came up and he's not going to be able to make it. So I will be scratching that off our calendar entries for next week. So right now, I don't know who or what our speaker is going to be next Thursday night. We still intend to have a meeting Thursday night. If anyone has a great topic or would like to speak or has a way of bribing someone to speak, by all means, mention it, or we'll help you drag them in and force them to speak or whatever. But
I'll donate some amber box to the project.
Pardon me?
I'll donate some amber box to the project.
There we go. There we go.
Are you talking the beverage or the server that needs to be updated? Hey, do we want next Thursday to be a working session?
That would be an option.
Yeah, that could be an option. For those who aren't familiar with it, we are the server we use for the mail server for SLUUG is running on Debian 10 and needs to be upgraded to Debian 12.
And we've been playing with it for almost a year now. So,
so
every time we think we got a plan, somebody throws a grenade in the works. This isn't working. That isn't working. Right now, the biggest issue is Mailman 2 and some other things that I forget about now because it's been so long. Primarily, it would really be nice to have some help to try to pull the documentation together. You know, it actually has some time to read through the emails and collect all the notes and make sense out of them. But Indians are always in short supply.
I kind of feel like it's like some projects I have where I have a lot of the pieces. I might even have all the individual units. I just need to sit together and walk through the process of plugging them together to find what is missing.
Yeah.
And go get that thing and then repeat the process.
Yeah, that's kind of where we keep finding ourselves, is that classic thing of, okay, yeah, we know what needs to be done, and we think we know how to do it, and we got confidence that we can do it. And it's just that every time we get close to pulling the trigger, And we start thinking through the steps, all of a sudden there's that one step that, wait a second, did we get the necessary stuff for that? Oh, damn, we're not ready yet. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And I kind of feel like, unless Sean has a presentation, I see he has a comment. Do a new clone and just walk through the documentation we have to update that clone and find what's missing. And because I thought we had an answer for Mailman, and I thought it revolved around either installing another package which kept Python 2 around, or a parameter to one of the upgrade commands. I want to say Mike had the answer to that in the mailing list.
Yeah, but there was something else that Mike brought up when I mentioned doing that exactly months ago.
I'm surprised, I'm surprised we can't just like upgrade the host OS and then have a Debian, whatever, 10 or whatever the old version is, container that runs Mailman. I mean, I realize that's not ideal long term, but that
To me, when you are putting Mailman in a container, you're effectively moving Mailman to a separate server from where the MTA for the domain is. And from an email architecture, there are some complications for that. And somebody had, let me put my glasses back on. Tyler, it's Mailman 2, which is dependent on Python 2. And by default, when you upgrade from, is it 10 to 11 or 9 to 10, whatever version it is, it also default upgrades to Python 3, which Mailman 2 is not compatible with Python 3. And Mailman 3, it's like the difference between Windows 95 and NT, or Solaris and AIX. They look similar, they do similar things, they have some similar ideas, but how they do it is completely effing different.
Yeah, I think Mailman 3 is a Django app. And Mailman 2 is something much, much older.
Yeah. I would say that Mailman 3, unless there is a documented upgrade conversion process, I would honestly question, do we want Mailman 3, or are we in the market for a different mailing list manager? It is so different in the back end from Mailman 2. It's like, why are we sticking with Mailman at that point?
Well, the discussion we had a long time ago was, it's not the admin or the functional side, it's the history side that we're concerned about.
Yeah, and my fear is even the bringing the history forward into Mailman 3, it is like completely restructuring the archive.
Well, there's no problem restructuring it as long as we've got the script to do it.
Like when Mailman 3 was first released, I don't even think it had any history mechanism. It was just mail in, mail out. But yeah, whoever was asking, I think the idea was to upgrade the OS and retain Mailman 2, and then on the new OS, which is supported, do the migration from Mailman 2 to Mailman 3. And then once we were on Mailman 3, we could then do the next OS update to get to current.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has looked. I just did a quick search of Migrate Mailman archives, and I see a whole bunch of them migrating Mailman 2 to Mailman 3.
I would hope there's something by now, but there wasn't originally.
Most of this stuff is from over a year and a half ago, though.
Yeah.
Another mini announcement done with a test, not a test, but just a question afterwards. The mini announcement is there's an election coming up, I believe in February. Basically every February we elect one or two people to our 5-person board of directors for the SLUUG organization. And they appoint the officers. There's also a suggestion election of who should be the officers. So that comes up in February. And you might say, gee, who votes on that? And basically, if you have attended any of the SLUUG organized meetings in the last calendar year, then you're eligible to vote in February. That goes to the question that was asked just as we were starting is, oh, if Stan isn't here, who's taking the attendance? That's why we take the attendance, is just so we have a record. So hopefully you put down a name that you can be identified with, so that if it comes to you can vote. So
what's Stan's going rate to make sure your name does not appear on the ballot?
Yes.
I think he mentioned $20 the last time it came up.
Yeah, and I think I heard him say it was going up. So is it 220s or is it now a 50?
Yes.
Just keep handing him bills until he nods.
Do Monopoly bills count? Or credit card bills?
Oh my! I do have just a weird question, and we'll see if we can play with the reactions thing and do this by a show of hands. And I know we've had some people who've already dropped off the meeting tonight, but by a show of hands, who considers themselves to be an out-of-town person who is here at the meeting tonight, as opposed to an in-town person?
Does everybody know how to raise their hand?
Yeah, that's another question. Does everybody know?
Might be a case of raise your hand if you know how to do it, and then put it down if you're an out of town. And are you talking St. Louis City proper or the greater St. Louis area?
That's why I just said, hey, if you consider it, I would say St. Louis area.
Yeah.
About city limits.
Where the hell is the hand?
React, the heart at the bottom.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. That's interesting. I'm seeing, oh, that's a couple of the hands come up differently than other ones. That's weird. Okay.
Well, where'd I go?
Okay, so I'm only seeing, I think, 4 showing as out of town. Let me turn the question around. People
one,
consider themselves in town, please raise your hand. Out of towners, put your hand down.
Reactions.
Well, come on, Tyler, you're in town, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm just trying to find what the button is.
Hard on the bottom.
Yeah, it says reactions. If you click on that, then it gives you the option to raise your hand. So, okay. If I count it right, I got 6 versus 4, which still leaves some people.
There's still some coming. Sean, Steve. Steve's probably asleep.
Okay.
Or he's yelling at the mic, he can't find it.
It's 8-4 with a few people who haven't, or a couple of people who haven't voted. So, okay. And then I only asked the question first off to make sure that we can not do anything that would deprecate the people who are joining us from out of town. But yeah, every now and then people say, "Oh, where are the attendees coming from?" I'm like, hey, that's why we're. Yeah, in some ways it would be nice to all get together over pizza and beer, but yeah, quite a few of our attendees are out of towners. So.
Hang on a second.
What I've seen people do in cases like that is if you have a location with a webcam and a projector
Mhm.
At pizza and beverages or whatever group that are in town get together there. And what work has done is they have actually paid for or allowed expensing Uber or something for a reasonable priced meal. So you can attend from your house on your webcam and enjoy your meal while the group wherever else is enjoying their meal. And it's just a distributed meal.
Yeah. Yeah, it does make it nice.
Okay, we just need a laptop with a webcam.
Yeah, the projector is kind of nice if you have multiple people in the room or a big screen to be able to see, lest you're 6 feet away eating your slice of pizza, squinting, going, "Who's saying what?"
Mm-hmm.
But
I may be able to swing the meeting room at Siemens again if that's something you guys want to do. Though, the cell service is terrible there.
About the meal. How do you get somebody to pass the butter remotely? Or refill the beer.
Pass the butter. Well, David, at least your name isn't Humphrey Bogart.
All right. Well, I'm getting hungry and lasagna has come out of the oven. So I think I'm going to say have a good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you, Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
A really big thank you to our speaker tonight. Really appreciate it, Tom, and it's really been informative. So we hope to come back soon.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Lee. And with that, have a good night.
Good night.
Hasta la vista. Buenas noches.
Anyone have any other things they would like to comment on or just muse on or ask questions about?
Hey, Lee, how hard would it be to bundle up the mailman data for me to attempt an upgrade on it?
I have no idea. I've never looked at it.
This documentation is very long.
Where is it? may have-
Tyler linked it in the chat earlier. The exact page he linked is not very helpful, but if you keep going down the sidebar, there is a lot.
It looks like Varlip mailman, but we got mailman and mailman restored.
We had to deal with this in GoLog, though I think we're still staying with Mailman 2, but there's some sort of Usenet mirror in the way that we were, because when the mail finally needed to be migrated somewhere else, we had email history back to 2009. And somehow we were able to suck it out of the Usenet thing and rezip it up. Now, eventually when it settled out to where it went, I don't think the entire archive went back to 2009 because, or it never got re-implemented that Piper Mail would actually feed that far back. But we were able to, because it had been archived to Usenet. I just don't remember the name of it, but there was something wrong with where it was hosted that it couldn't connect to the port or couldn't connect to the right port without a timeout. So the little script didn't work. But I'd have to go back to the GoLug archive to remember when we talked that about 5 years ago, so.
Oh, actually, this isn't that long. I thought all these were separate pages, but they're just headings on the same page. So actually, the documentation doesn't look that long, actually. I'm looking at it again. Still a bunch of stuff that I have no clue about, but
Looks like 1.3 gig worth of archives.
incredible. That is incredible because I tried to send like a 2 meg picture and it was like, hell no, no attachments ever. So I'm amazed that we have 1.3 gigs of just flat text. That's incredible.
Yeah, announce is 33 meg. Discuss is 700 meg. I don't know what discuss mbox is. Looks like a mailbox. Mbox format. Jobs. Steercom 171 meg. Web dev is gone. Sysadmin 140 meg. And a bunch of little stuff.
Well, in the days before social media, and this group's existed for a long time. There used to be lengthy discussions with many people participating, arguing about one point or another that would go on maybe for a couple of weeks. Discuss isn't quite as active as it used to be.
The question is did the quality go down or the quantity? Because if all the tank memes just moved over to Facebook, I'm fine with that.
Looks like we've got about 20 years worth of archives in here. I'm just making a tar ball and watching it fly by.
To me, email's too low bandwidth, right? It's like you can't do like there's just things that I expect now in like chat apps, right? Like I expect to do pictures, GIFs, reactions, all that kind of stuff, and email just ain't got none of that. And it's just I don't know, feels low bandwidth to me. Low.
Well,
Not
the
as engaging.
email is, but with 25 years worth of archives, you got 1.4 gigabyte worth of crush.
Yeah.
The thing is that all the limits you just mentioned are just limits on this particular version of Mailman, or the options we turned on are off. I mean, you can certainly put pictures in the mail. You can do reactions in mail.
Jeez Louise. I'm still archiving. How the hell does
There was a 2006 date that just went by.
no, I've seen 2001.
2001, okay.
So I'm assuming there's 2000 in there once in a while. I just want to see how big a tar ball it is. That way, if somebody wants to play with it, we can let them play with it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is maybe one of these days when I'm burning vacation, instead of, trying to figure out how to load balance belts inside a factory, I can tinker with it in my own on my virtual machine.
Still humping. We're talking thousands of months here with all the data.
This makes me think in the news just this last week, they talked about there is a stone tablet that is over 1,500 years old that they found in Palestine, and it was found, I think they said in like 1908 or something like that. And people didn't even realize what was on it. It was written in some ancient script, and so now they realize it's a copy of the Ten Commandments. It had actually been being used as a paving stone in somebody's driveway. So, yeah, it's like if you can imagine, maybe in 1500 years, somebody is going to find this archive, a tarball of all the old emails from.
I don't understand this, Gary. We're still in Discuss Archives, and I swear I've seen these dates go by more than once.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly not in order.
Oh, I know what it is. The archives have a single HTML page for every page that's displayed. It's all static.
Okay.
In other words, if there's 4 pages for a month, there's 4 HTML files and 4 sets of everything.
Oh.
Would that be for thread, subject, author, and date?
Yep. That's the only thing that makes sense, because for Discuss, I saw the same dates go by at least 4 or 5 times. So if there's a static page generated for each view, that would make sense. Of course, I probably shouldn't have done anything. I should have just done SteerCom, Discuss, and sysadmin, since that's all we're really.
Stop it now.
Well,
They had that much time invested in it. It's like,
that's only 225 meg. So we've got
The thing that we archived against was gnam.io, and you could actually then use a news reader to read basically what was in Piper Mail.
okay. I'm going to make an archive of Discuss, SteerCom, and sysadmin, since that's basically what we're interested in.
what does that leave out?
The rest of the craft.
What is the rest of the crowd?
Tests, web dev, kinds of crap like that.
Okay.
I never checked my SLUUG email because there's no way to block the crap. We've got SteerCom, web dev, temp, test, testing. I don't know what users is. Oh, announce. Okay. Okay, if anybody,
Tom, thank you. Did a great job tonight.
yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Yep. Check out your page on our new website, and you can start stacking presentations like Lee. He's got dozens under his name.
228 meg of the, except for announce. I should have added that, damn it.
The recording's still going, by the way, just in case we're
Yeah, should we kill the recording?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Tom? Not Tom, Sean?
Recording still.
Recording's still going, yeah. Yeah, I guess, you know, we may talk about something of good technical nature, but I think we're just winding down, so. Yeah, unless somebody thinks we're gonna have a good technical comment or two, turn off the recording, so bookend. This has been the Wednesday, December the 11th, 2024 meeting, the general monthly meeting of SLUUG, the St. Louis Unix Users Group. Our speakers tonight, the basic tutorial was by Lee Lammert. He's talking about Greenbone vulnerability scanner. And our main topic tonight was done by Tom Crow, and he did a good presentation on DistroBox, and we all enjoyed that. So with that, that's the end of our meeting. Thank you all for coming.